All right, everybody. Mike Black here from Page Black. We are live and we have a panel today to discuss latest in our Page Black Business Leader Series. And we have a panel to talk about hiring and retaining great employees in 2021. And so thank you very much for joining us. I think if you're a business leader and you're reading any newspaper that's business focused, you know there are terms like the Great Resignation of 2021 is what I'm reading. There's this discussion where 25% of employees or staff are looking at changing in the next year. There are, there are people, there are a variety of reasons why, from virus fears, not wanting to go back to the old way of doing business. Commonly, in fact, one of the statistics that I was reading is the people that are new to your company who haven't met your team in person. That's one of the highest demographics in terms of people leaving companies. And so today we're going to talk about some of those things and give you some solutions and give you a different path, hopefully. So we've got some experts for that today. But that said, let's move forward quickly and let me introduce my panel today. First, I have Chuck McCoy. He's a senior partner with Creative Alignments. And they're a recruiting company that partners with quickly growing and impact-focused businesses in natural products, consumer products, and technology. They help them hire the people they need to achieve their mission, and they do it quickly. I love their model. They have a time-based recruiting model that helps them, companies like SolidFire, VictorOps, Halo Top, and RX Bar grow to successful exits. Chuck, I didn't know this. You have an economics degree from Brown University, and he's a committed environmentalist, so he knows more than I do about the conversation we were just having. And even though I remember things that maybe didn't happen. Sorry, inside joke to everybody. And then in his spare time, he loves hitting the slopes, the pool, the gym, and the road on his cycle. Then we have Denise Liebetrau, who we were debating Liebetrau, whether or not it means true love, or when I looked up the word parts in German, it means love, and then I think trust, which is nice. She is the founder and CEO of Prosper Consulting. She helps companies maximize their profit and impact for employees as a trusted advisor on the HR and compensation issues. What I love about having Denise here today is she sits on both sides of the table. She helps employers figure out how to negotiate and employees figure out how to negotiate salary. And so she coaches high performers so they get paid what they are worth and then have careers that are aligned to their values. And she's a speaker and a trainer. So if you have interest there, you can connect with her on LinkedIn. She focuses on topics like how to have difficult conversations, which we've all unfortunately have to have more often than we'd like, maximizing pay through effective negotiation, and leading yourself first by mastering emotional intelligence, and the art of influence and executive presence. So lots there. All right, finally, we have our Chief Marketing Officer. And some of you are wondering why I would ask our Chief Marketing Officer. And I will tell you, I have a belief that all people problems or people challenges or communication challenges, at least in part. And so that's one of the reasons Marilyn actually texted me. She's like, why do you have me on this panel? And so I said, well, this is why. And on top of that, we've done some work with clients around figuring out how do we position them? How do we build the right website to attract employees? And I think that's important. So we'll look for her input there. What you need to know is she has a master's in integrated marketing communications. She's worked in a variety of firms. She is in charge of delivering all the magic that we promise as a company. And I'll tell you that we just delivered a presentation where she did such a nice job, and I can always brag about my team. So I'm going to take the opportunity, and she's embarrassed. You can't see her face. But really what we were told is, look, we appreciate you bringing us in, and senior leadership did not know about some of these things that you're telling us today. So it's going to be valuable for them. All right, my name is Mike Black, least important person today. I'm a traffic director. I'm also the CEO and managing partner of Page Black, and I happen to be really good at moderating conversations, so we'll find out if I'm good. These are just some things to think about Page Black if you come across them, as your marketing department's trying different things and you're just not getting the results you want. You know you're better than your competition, but they get more attention. That's never fun. Marketing is inconsistent. It's not measured or it's not effective. Or your customers don't know about everything you offer. You do more than they know about. And then finally, you're thinking about going into a new target market, and you just don't have a plan, and we'll help you fix all those problems. All right, enough said with that. Let's launch into our first question. Our first question, I'm going to give you some context. It's the introduction that I made, that there are all these changes, the Great Resignation of 2021, newer staff members are leaving, key employees are leaving with all these different reasons, and there's not even these consistent reasons. So that is the question, is what are the top steps an employer can take to keep their employees? And so we're going to start, Denise, given that you are the person that negotiates on both sides of the table, I really am interested in your answer to this question.
Well, I think, part of it is just listening, right? Doing some stay interviews, talking to your employees and figuring out, what's top of mind, what's working well for them and what isn't, and listen, and then reacting accordingly. I think what I've seen a lot of companies try to do is force fit a single solution for everybody, and that isn't going to work. A hybrid model has worked for the last, year plus, and to take away the whole remote thing right now is ridiculous. You're not going to go back to the old normal. I think there is no normal at this point. You just got to listen to your folks and pay attention to what they care about and flex.
All right. So let me ask a deeper question. If you're doing a stay interview, what are the top questions you're asking? Like, give me like 3 for somebody that's thinking about that.
So usually when I had my team, I would always ask them, what's working well? What 3 things are working well for you right now? And what 3 things would you change if you had a magic wand? And I always ask that in my one-on-ones. And they would get tired of answering that question. I'm like, tell me what's working and tell me what's not working so that we can try to influence and make some changes to make things better. And so I just think, keeping a bead on things, and then also just not making assumptions, right? So if somebody, a month ago was working well and was being very productive, and then suddenly you see some things kind of fall off and they're maybe not as engaged, ask the question. Don't assume that they're just trying to be lazy. Ask the question, say, hey, is something going on? I noticed that you aren't as talkative in meetings anymore, or you haven't been as energetic. Are you okay? What's going on? And listen.
Mm-hmm. Great advice. All right, Chuck, what are your thoughts?
A couple of things. I think one, really being a servant leader and asking those employees, what can I do to help make your life better here at XYZ company? So I think that's really important. And you gotta follow through, right? If they have ideas, you gotta do what you say you're gonna do. You gotta walk the walk. One of the things we did was just really recognizing the challenges of COVID, and maybe it's we did a COVID bonus at Creative Alignments. Our COVID journey, had lots of twists and turns and ups and downs. And then it just gone crazy up. But I think paying them for that. Those challenges and kind of that mental anguish of what we've all gone through, and just really recognizing that, I think is a big piece. And then, echoing what Denise said and what Mike started with, just the communication piece. And there's many, many different channels that you can get to your employees, whether that's, I think Zoom meetings are harder at this point. Everyone's kind of tired of it, but, email or blogs or phone calls or text messages or, however you can get to them just to check in and be there and be present is super important.
Yeah, I think about this in a marketing context, not necessarily is that if you're going to say something and that you have to actually do it, because really the strongest form of communication is action.
Yeah.
And so if you ask and don't do anything, you just don't ask. If you're not really prepared, I mean, or be upfront, like maybe it's not possible, fine. Then just say, look, I'm sorry, that's not possible.
Well,
How else
and I think that's part of it, being transparent in your conversation, right? Like, wow, that's a great idea, but we just don't have the money to do that right now. It's on the list. Maybe down the road we can do that, but here's what we can do for you right now.
That's great. Love it. All right. Tom, thank you for it sounds like we have a comment here that good article from McKinsey came out this morning and it talks about this topic. So I wish I'd been doing more research. I usually follow their site and prep for these and I did not on this one. All right, Marilyn, we talk about this a little bit both internally as well as with our clients around website development. What are your thoughts about this?
I agree with everything the other panelists said. And I would add that the conversation I would want to have is, how have your goals changed since this whole year, this past year and a half? How have your goals changed? And then be transparent about, well, this is how we've shifted. We've all had to shift. And just having that conversation about, we thought we were going in one direction and geez, we had to pivot. And what does that look like in your life? And I think having that as a very open conversation and reiterating, this is still the values of the company. This is still who we want to be. This is still who we think we are. Is that who you want us to be? Is that who you want to be with us? I think that's a worthwhile conversation. And you can have that in your social, depending on how big your company is, you can have that in social media, in company newsletters. I mean, you can start putting things on your email signatures about your vision and your values and those kinds of things and put it on their signatures.
Mm-hmm. The other piece for me that just obviously we're a marketing company. You don't have to use us to do this, but I think having a brand that people are proud to work at, having a website that people can feel like they can share, that they're proud, that they can kind of like, if everybody who works at Facebook works really hard to work at Facebook because they've got a brand. Like them or hate them at this point, whatever that is, the fact is they have a brand. And so making sure that you're building the brand that people are proud of. We had a client where they went from really not very good and they were going to lose some key players to where those, I know that that key player is actually still with them. And it was because a part of it was we redid their logo and they got to put a new logo on all their trucks and made them look awesome. And Marilyn led that effort. Again, I'm going to embarrass her all I can.
It was a logo and a website and communicate. I mean, it was a whole brand standards thing that, you know, just made them feel like, oh, we're like proper.
Real company. All right. Chuck, go ahead.
Yeah, I had one other idea around, you know, how to keep your employees and keep them in the fold. And for us, we added a couple benefit pieces to our overall package that we're kind of long standing. You know, we hadn't pulled the trigger yet. Our employees really wanted it. We knew that through surveying and so on, and we decided to add those now. And I think you know, you can get to like, I don't want to throw money at them, right? That's how you think about it. But it's not just the cost. The way that I look at it is, you know, if I didn't do that, yes, I have that money that I didn't spend. But if I don't do it and some percentage of my employees leave, what's the cost of that? And especially so in this kind of a hiring environment, you know, it's doubly or triply or 10 times harder to hire new employees. And you can take your cost double and triple and 10 times your cost on that as well. So I think you have to look at, you know, saving employees from leaving and what's that kind of saved opportunity cost that I didn't incur. That could really should factor into your, you know, the financial decision around, can I add this benefit or this perk or not? But we did that, and our employees were super happy about it. They were really thrilled. It was around, you know, we added extra PTO, so we just were thrilled to have that.
I will piggyback on that because I work as a compensation rewards consultant, and I've got a lot of companies right now proactively benchmarking their compensation. What are they paying their employees, and what are they delivering in terms of benefits? And they're looking at those with an eye toward adding. Because they recognize it's table stakes. If you aren't competitive on benefits and compensation, you're not going to attract the right people. And because the market is moving so quickly, there are people who have got data sources right now where that are aggregating across job postings. So you can get a real sense by geographic location, what are certain jobs being paid. So it's real-time data. I've got some data sources like that I can point people to if you're interested. But yeah, the market's changing.
All right.
The other thing I would add is whatever you do, make sure you message it clearly. It's not enough to say, okay, we're going to add this, we're going to add that. You need to make sure that your employees know that you're doing it.
That's such a good point. And I think, Chuck, you did this in a way. You did the surveys, you responded, and I'm sure you messaged it well, but you did the whole process of listening to them. So yeah. I'm glad to hear that worked for you guys. All right.
If you can't toot your own horn.
That's right. Absolutely. All right. I am going to shift quickly not quickly to our next question. I'm going to talk about our next webinar. This coming Tuesday, 10 a.m. Mountain, we are going to be talking about if your current customers don't know everything that you do and you need to teach them, we're going to be talking about how you can do that. So that would be a good webinar for you to come hang out on that. And I think we'll share that link in this later. All right. And then I'm going to move into our next question. And boy, I need to work on my animations there. They should just all pop up at once. But burnout is an issue. I think it's a big issue right now. I think people have worked really hard for the last couple of years. And yet people are working at home where boundaries are not great. People tend to overwork. There was an article, the CEO of one big company actually just talked about his vacation plans. And maybe we can talk about it. He said, this is what I'm doing and you tell me what you're doing. I was torn about that because I thought that was a little bit, and now I'm shifting the question. I warned them ahead of time. These are your questions and I've just changed the question. But it did come out today. And so, you know, I think that's a double-edged sword because I think it could be intrusive if your employer is saying, hey, what are your, like, it's great that he has expectations and wants to share. But at the same time, I don't, and then if he's the CEO, he might have more money than the rest of his employees. And he might be going off to a great vacation that they can't afford, which would not necessarily be a great thing for them to be talking about. So anyways, let's start with the burnout and how do we help employees. How do we address burnout with in the age of working from home? And Denise, we'll start with you.
I think one of the things you have to do is encourage your employees to have boundaries. I think it's really hard when you work from home, at least it is for me, to not just have it bleed into my full day, right? I have to kind of set start and stop times and shut things off at a certain point. And I think building habits and routines and rituals are good. I have one friend of mine who actually goes out for coffee every morning and then comes back home and goes straight into her office to work. But she has a routine that helps her, ritualize kind of that start of her day. And then she shuts off at a certain time and she just communicates it. Here's the reality as an employee, right? Your employer will take as much as you will give. If you do not set and communicate clear boundaries, they will continue to take and take and take. And so I think encouraging people to do something related to self-care on a daily basis is important. And that to me is exercise, eating right, stress management, getting good night's sleep, and then asking your employees, what are you doing for self-care? And encouraging them to do that is really important. So some of this is personal accountability, but part of it is just encouraging people to do that without having an expectation that they answer an email that maybe you sent at 2:00 in the morning because you couldn't sleep. And I'm guilty of doing crazy stuff like that because I'll have my brain working and I can't sleep. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to get some work done. But I always tell my team, do not answer. That's just me because I can't sleep. And it is what it is. But clearly setting and establishing boundaries is incredibly important.
So I have a response here. So first, I love the scheduling feature in the Google.
Yeah.
Google, and I don't send. Yeah. I will schedule the emails for the morning, so they're not going out. They're pre-done, and that way, one, they don't know that I'm insane and work at odd hours. Although I say my team totally knows that anyway.
We know.
We know, Mike. Right. We know that.
So then, but that's a wonderful way for them not to get that email in the middle of the night and feel like they have to respond to it, and then I'm free to write the email and not feeling like I'm, God, what if I wake them up? Yeah. So I'm a fan of that. I will be a counterpoint to the idea that your employer will take everything. There is an employer. We all know who these people are. I'm not going to say because a friend of mine went and got a job there. Very serious growth-oriented company. They are heavy into it, and she's in business development there. So of course that's heavy into that. Yep. She is not able to work outside of work hours. Everything turns off, and I think she said they'd fire her if they caught her.
Wow.
Like it was serious. But also this is incredibly competitive. So I'm sure she is ultra focused during the day. Go ahead, Denise.
Wow. Well, but I will tell you, I helped because I'm a career and pay negotiation coach as well as a consultant to employers. And I had helped somebody get a role at Amazon and helped them maximize their offer. Within 3 months, she called me. She's like, I got to get out. This is ridiculous. They want me to work from 7 a.m. and I don't get off calls till 9, 10 at night. And there is no, relentless is what that pace and that culture is. So I think part of burnout is recognizing, are you in an organization that will accept your boundaries? Are you do you have leadership who are toxic? Or do you need to get out? Right? Like, can you stay or do you go? And it's okay to go. There's plenty of opportunities these days. So as much as I ride the fence and help employers try to retain people, I will tell people to go. If they've got toxic leaders or a culture that isn't supportive of their well-being, go. It's not worth it.
There you go. All right. I will say this company is not Amazon, although they are known for that. All right, Chuck, what's your answer?
Amazon's got some reputation for a reason. So,
Yeah. 7 to 9 sounds rough.
I have a couple of ideas. One to help employees. I know a lot of companies are kind of doing, 9/9. So every 9 days on, and then you get an extra day off. So you have a long weekend on a Friday or a Monday. That can be a good benefit. In Colorado, we used to have, FAC, Friday Afternoon Club. It was kind of a party thing. But, you could do that and just say, hey, we're going to just shut the office at noon on Friday. That way it's not a full day where you don't get, business happening. But how much is really going to happen on a Friday afternoon in the summertime anyway? So it's probably not that much lost productivity. I think from a work from home perspective, communicating that this is different and it's okay to do do a load of laundry, or spend half an hour reading to your child, or whatever that is. The day may be longer, but you have to go in and out of work multiple times throughout the day, which we didn't tend to do that in an office. I know one thing that I did and this was in the early 90s. I was actually doing a work from home job. My kids were little, and I would put on a tie every day to send the message to my children, like, Dad's working. So, it's different. So it was a visual cue, but also for me, when I ended my day, I took that off. So I had a wardrobe cue, like, okay, leave it till tomorrow and go be with your family. So some ideas like that might be helpful for folks.
So yeah, really developing a ritual that says,
Yeah.
I'm here, I'm clocking in now. And I guess you'd have to have like a really easy tie given how often you're in and out now, but clip on, that's right. But really, I think that's critical, is to have some rituals to say, I'm taking care of myself. Now it's time for me to take care of myself. And then just making sure, one of the things we do is that we're super flexible around that stuff. And so, my thing is, I don't care when you work. I just care that the work gets done on time. And we try and make sure we're not overwhelming people at the same time.
I have one client who does no meeting Fridays. So Fridays, no meetings, done. Just, you get a full day to knock out some work, which I think is nice, right? Because it's that stopping, starting, and it takes you how long to get into flow to really be productive. Block some time.
Yep.
From a communication standpoint, I think sending to a newsletter, an email to your employees saying, these are the top 5 signs of burnout, and here's 5 things to do if you are feeling, if you have any of these signs. I think that sends a message too, that this is something we are aware of and we want to help you.
I like these ideas. You'll notice that if you can't tell, I'm taking notes today, folks.
That's great.
I'm learning here. All right. Other comments on that before we move into our next question around burnout?
I just had one other thing. With COVID, there's been so many changes and so on. And I think people are short-staffed and work has come back. And I think it's like, okay, well, we had 3 people leave, so now I need to divvy up those jobs amongst the rest of you that are remaining. And that can really contribute to burnout. So you've just piled on, half of a job or a quarter of a job on top of what someone else already has. So I think you have to be really thoughtful around, maybe, yes, I need that function to get done of what the person who left, and I'm going to ask you to do that. But what of your job could we either not do temporarily till I'm able to hire someone, or is it okay that we're just going to take that off the table and we're not going to do that anymore? I think there's a lot of times we do things because we've always done them, but are they actually necessary? And I think there's been a lot of piling on of, hey, we got to cover now and you got to do this, but they never took anything out the backside of it, and you have to pay attention to that. So that's kind of a management is causing the burnout by piling on. And hey, this is the business, we got to get this done. Yes, but you got to help your employees out on the backside of that too.
That's such an awesome point, because we're such an additive. Sean, who actually just liked this, also was on a call and talked about the best way to innovate is to, I can't remember how he said it, but essentially it's take things away.
Yeah, stop list, I call them. What are you going to start doing? What are you going to stop doing? If you're adding something, what are you going to stop doing? Because you can't do everything.
Yep. All right. So side note for everybody that doesn't know it, Marilyn kidnaps dogs during the week. And so, and we just happen to be interrupted by one. And so she's trying not to talk. But love your idea, Marilyn, on the whole internal newsletter. It makes a ton of sense of like, what are you doing to do that? And maybe it's not a newsletter, maybe it's a chat, maybe you're talking about it at a team, maybe it's a slide in whenever your team meetings that you're just talking about slide. There's all sorts of ways to go about it, but that's a good idea of like, these are the signs of burnout and what to do. And love the idea of let's take stuff away. I mean, I think you should always be looking at that anyways. So now's a really good time as a company to do that. All right. We are going to shift to our next question, if I can find the right button. And that is, some people, my wife included, for those of you who know me, are afraid of this virus still. And so, and I think it's real. And I think some people there's some people out there that aren't as concerned about the virus. Other people are. Some people are faking it both ways. So it's really this complicated issue. But how do you support your people that are nervous about coming back to work through this?
Well, I think first of all, you recognize that people differ in their opinions, right? But your role as an employer is to keep your employees safe. And so if that means continuing to social distance, or if the protocol is to continue to wear masks, whatever your local authorities are suggesting, follow that. I heard too many examples where leadership, senior leaders in companies were not following the local protocols and advice from government officials about how to keep themselves and their employees safe. They were saying it, but not acting it, right? And so I think you need to be cautious from that perspective. And I think, it's also good to continue to remind people, if you're sick, stay home. If you have a temperature, stay home. If you have a cough, stay home. Don't, especially as they start trying to pull people into work, encourage people not to come into the office if they are not feeling well. Don't take a chance of spreading it.
Right, because if people are a little nervous about it now, what's going to happen if you actually have an outbreak at your office?
Well,
it's going to be crazy.
And we know the virus is variant, right? We have variants of the virus, and it's morphing and changing, and so we're getting new information all the time as well. And so it's keeping up on things. But as an employer, you need to take the safety of your team as a high priority and do the right thing. Don't just say it, do it.
That's right.
Role model.
That's actually back to communications. Marilyn, what are your thoughts?
Yes.
Given we're talking communications.
Well, depending on the culture and the type of company it is, you could send out, and I mean, this is dependent on things, sending out, these are the latest things from the CDC. This is the latest reports from, whoever the source is on this variant or that variant, or, what's happening in the county, depending on the culture and the industry and, what would be appropriate.
I love that because I think it brings this sense of reality, right? Like that people are thinking, some people are reading this news incessantly. Some people are ignoring it incessantly. And so just having these updates, it makes a ton of sense around just having a real conversation that's grounded in some sort of, as best we can get to, science in this world of debate around what science is. At least we're gonna, at least then we can have a real conversation about where we are. That's awesome. So one of our clients, we joke, but this is a real thing for him, is that there was some discussion around this is more work from home than virus fears. There was a poll on the internet that's or a poll on LinkedIn that said, hey, do you think people should be able to work from home right now? And they're a manufacturing company said, sure, as long as they don't mind having a 2-ton press in their living room. They can work from home all they want. And I just laughed at that because it isn't, we can sit here and say we're all in home offices clearly on this, but it's easy for us to say, well, just let your people work from home. But it's not so easy. If you have people that are nervous and yet they have to be there to do the job, that's a big deal. So Chuck, what are your thoughts about this? How are you guys, or what are your thoughts? How are your clients handling
I think
this?
just, it's incumbent upon leadership, probably to be more conservative. I mean, this is health and wellness, and literally can be matters of life and death for folks. And erring conservatively to protect your employees' health and wellness is super important. And I think that would be appreciated. Yes, it's a hassle, but in the long run, what matters more? Nothing in terms of your business, I would posit. The other piece I would say is thinking wider. It's not just your employees, it's their kids, it's, their extended family, probably most of their parents or whatever are vaccinated, but not all of them. So you have to think a bit wider. It's not just your employees. We just went through yesterday, we had a communication around what we're going to do with our policy at Creative Alignments. The people who actually wrote the policy are very much fearful and concerned and anxious about it. I mean, they were very upfront about stating that. I personally was not, but it was great to hear and question their thought process, and also to say it's got to work for you. Like, I get it works for Chuck, but it's got to work for you as well. What we come up with, I don't want it to be you feeling like, yeah, they didn't listen to me and they didn't provide a safe solution. So I think that's really important. And the anxiety around it is all over the map. And you just have to recognize that and accommodate for that. And whatever solution you're going to come up with, you have to accommodate for that.
So I didn't have this really strong opinion about this until we had this conversation, but I now have a strong opinion. And it is, I think that you as an employer absolutely have to make it safe no matter what their opinion is.
Mike, can you get a little closer to your microphone?
Oh, okay. I will even turn up a little bit. Thank you. How's that better?
Yes,
Yep.
thank you.
All right. Now that I have a strong opinion and I can actually be heard, I will say that my opinion, you have to make it safe no matter what their opinion is. And we have people on both sides, and people are stigmatizing people on, well, you're just nervous, Nelly. You know, my wife is nervous about it, but she's being a tiger mom and protecting her kids. Like, that's what it is. And, you know, I 100% support her, even if I don't necessarily see the risk that she does. That's okay. Well, so I'll talk about that, but I'm completely okay with what she's, you know, I'm willing to do whatever it takes for her to feel safe. And it's the same for my team, that it's okay if you're nervous about it. We got to figure it out. It's okay if you're not nervous about it. We have to be respectful of both sides. And so that's my strong opinion. There you go. All right. Not often I have those, but I did this time. All right. Others on. So we're going to shift into a conversation that I really find fascinating. And it's because we've done a little bit of work in that area. And it's, you know, the thought here is, you know, you are going to lose some people. That's, if that 25% number is even close to accurate and half of them make a move or a quarter of them make a move, that's still 7% of the workforce or something like that. So that means you need to start attracting the right talent. I'm a fan of that whole idea and that process. And I'm excited to learn from the panel today what they have for that. And I am going to lead off with the non-HR person, because I know, Marilyn, that you and I have had a lot of conversations and you've done some work in this area.
Yeah.
Why don't you lead off on that, and then we'll go to Chuck.
Yeah, I love this, actually. So I like market research because it answers questions that you have that sometimes you think you know the answer to, and other times you really don't have the answer to. And market research is a great tool to use when you're talking about attracting talent. Because if you talk to your employees and prospective employees and you ask them things like, what is it that you really want? What is it that, and you ask them things in different ways. So HR people have a way of asking things in a certain way. And what you want to do is come at it from 3 or 4 different directions with 3 or 4 different types of questions that get at the same thing, because people hear things in different ways. And what you want to know is, first of all, what makes them excited to go to work? So not just, what do you want in a job? What do you want in a career? What makes you fired up? What makes you go, yeah, that's where I want to work. I feel good at that place. Tell me about the best job you ever had. Tell me about the worst job you ever had. Tell me about a time, could be professional, not professional, where you felt like you really made a difference and you brought value. Tell me about that time. And you have to understand the motivations, the desires, the fears, the beliefs. Everyone has kind of baggage, and depending on how old they are, not to stigmatize, but the more sort of history you have, whether it's good or bad, people bring that with them to the workplace, you know, and they kind of have these beliefs of, well, this is how it was before. And, oh, well, if I work with someone who does that. And we want to understand that landscape, that mental landscape. And I personally would love to do research on particular vocations, like, you know, engineers as opposed to, you know, mathematicians, as opposed to, you know, to understand sort of what their work history is. All right, I'm getting off on my research head. Okay, I'll stop geeking out.
I was just about to say something.
I'm totally geeking out. Okay. But the point is,
we should talk, because I would be interested in doing something with you on that. So, you can talk.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. The point is, do not assume. I can't tell you how many times I've done market research where I have gone back to the client with the findings, and 30-40% they go, yeah, I knew that, I suspected that. And 40% they go, I did not see that coming. Wow, that's really news to me. And that's what you want. You want those insights, because I guarantee you, not every company is doing that work. They will
Marilyn,
figure out, oh, well, this benefit, and they'll do the window dressing, and they'll do the stuff that when they poll their employees and they go, well, what do you want? And then they do that. And that's a good employee. That's a good employer, I should say. But the employer that's really savvy, that really wants to be competitive, is going to do the market research to get into what is the thing. What is that unspoken desire? What is that insight that makes that employee light up, that makes them go, oh my God, I've got to work for that company? That's what you want. That's what you want to find out.
All right. So then, Marilyn, what do you do with that quickly?
Oh, okay. So then you have to actualize it, right? You have to make it actionable. So we learn that we do market research, and we learn that, engineers, they love to talk shop with other engineers. They get off on it. That is what they love doing. Well, guess what? Now you need to figure out, how do we work into the workday 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever it is, that it is structured time. And we put it on the website. When you come and work for our engineering firm, we have brainstorming sessions. That's part of our workplace culture, because we found out in the research that that's what they love. And that's how you actualize that.
All right. Thank you. All right, Chuck, what are your thoughts?
The idea is attracting talent. And that's really, if you think about it, that's an advertising or a marketing concept. And
I should have had you lead. Oops, sorry, I hit the wrong button there. I should have had you lead this, Chuck.
So really thinking about employment brand and how is your company perceived in the employment marketplace. And there's a ton of different channels there. It's really omni-channel that you have to be paying attention to. Your website, your LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, social media, Pinterest, things, all of those ways of communicating in today's modern world about your company and your brand, and using visuals, pictures worth 1,000 words. So that's really important. I think another tip is really pay attention to Glassdoor. If you have negative reviews on Glassdoor, you have got to address those.
Yep.
That almost every candidate, when they're doing their research, they're going out on Glassdoor and seeing what the reviews are. And Glassdoor may not be a fair platform always, but it is where they go. So you have to deal with it, and you have to address those right away. I think thinking about your job descriptions, get your job description out of the HR department and get it over to the marketing department. Your job description is an ad. It's not really designed to figure out, is this the right candidate or not? It's an ad to get people to understand what's compelling and what the differentiators are about your company and this job, and why they should even be thinking about, hey, maybe I want to learn more. If your job description does that, like all they do is reach out to you and say, I'm interested. This sounds pretty cool. Then that's the 100% success on your job description. So I think
you really want them to picture themselves working there, right? Like you want them to picture themselves having a great day at that job. That If you do that, then you've won.
Right. And of course, you have to be thinking about what does that potential new employee want? What are their buttons? What are their drivers? What are their goals and aspirations? And then how can we as a company meet those? So super short, think of it as an ad, get that message out there. You're gonna talk to the candidates and you're gonna screen them. So you don't need the job description to screen people out. Let's have a conversation.
Thank you for saying that. The thing that I see all the time in websites and in job ads is the employer makes it all about themselves.
Totally.
Yeah.
We're this, we do this, we're the best at this. Me, 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 me. We're so cool. We're so cool. And I want to see, people embrace the idea that this job description is not about me. It is not about my company. It is about you. And to write them from the perspective of this is who you are. This is what lights you up. This is what you're excited about. This is what you geek out on. This is, make it about them. And that will tell them who you are.
All right.
And think
Marilyn,
about
Chuck's got a response to that, and then Denise is after you. We've had a conversation here. Chuck.
just one thing real quick on that. Think about the competitive advantages that you have if your job description does that and all the other ones are this big, long laundry list of what I need as a company. Who are you going to be what company are you going to be attracted to? This me company or this one that's clearly thinking about candidate and employees?
All right. Denise, you also had a response. Go right ahead.
Here's the other thing I would tell you. There are a lot of job descriptions that are written as a wish list, the purple squirrel, like you're looking for the purple squirrel, right, Chuck? And I tell people, like, if you can do 60% of the job, apply. Like, just apply because it's a wish list and they're not going to find the perfect candidate. Just apply. So employers need to take a look at that job description and go, what do you really need to have to do the work versus what is your ideal, right? Do they really have to have a 4-year degree or can they have work experience in lieu of that? Then say that. We also live in a world where I will be honest with you, candidates are looking at your diversity of your leadership team. And I will tell people, pull up their webpage, who's on their board, who's their senior leadership team. Do you see somebody that looks like you? If you don't, you know what you're walking into. So, don't make job descriptions so big that they turn people off. I think the other thing you need to do is be just like on Glassdoor, where people will talk about things, about what you offer as an employer brand and your employer value proposition. You should have your employees being advocates and referring people in when you have openings. If your employees aren't referring people in when you have openings, you are doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. They should be encouraging their friends, their family, and other people that they know to come apply for your openings. And if you don't have that, that's a problem.
Yeah, employee referrals are the number one best source of candidates. It's really gold. And incent those employees to refer their friends and family and coworkers and past people that they know or have worked with or in their network. Incent them to do that. Again, it may seem like a lot of money, but
it's not.
In terms of the cost of hiring, it's peanuts. Peanuts.
Well, and the cost of hiring somebody who just left because you hired the wrong person, it's even smaller.
That's a whole nother.
That's another call. We didn't have that on the list today. Denise, what we're going to finish with.
And then the other thing is your reputation precedes you. I kind of jokingly said Amazon's got the culture, the relentlessness, right? Other companies have cultures. Your reputation precedes you as an employer. People talk. I encourage my coaching clients to do informational interviews with people who have just recently left the companies that are on their target list to find out, what's the company culture like? Get somebody to spill the beans and tell you what's really going on. I also recognize that there are many cultures within company cultures, right? Like if you go work for the law department versus HR versus an engineering part, it really very much depends on who you work for and who you work with as to what the culture is like, right? So take what people tell you with a grain of salt, but do your research.
All right. So I have a follow-up question. It jumps back to this job description. One of the things that when I was looking for work way back when, before I started a company, I really disliked the we are, you are. Like, this is who we are and you are. I always felt like, and so I'm just curious what your thoughts are. I always felt like I was being put in a box. And I'd be like, I don't quite fit in this box, I'm out. And so I wouldn't employ, and it felt, it's like you are this, you are this, you are this. I don't know. So
yeah, that bristles me. I'll tell you the other phrase that bothers me. We are a family. No, we're not. We're coworkers. We're not family. No, no, no. Don't tell me that because that's not healthy.
Okay. There you go. I
think really making it about what the applicant or the candidate, who they are. That's what it should be about. What they'll be doing, what they'll get out of the job, what their background may look like, or the experiences that would be helpful in this role.
I think
what would happen?
Line of sight. Go ahead, Marilyn.
What would happen if the coworkers wrote the job description?
If it's the engineering team, you don't want that.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
As long as it's not me.
A lot of numbers. There'll be a lot of numbers in there.
Oh, that's funny.
Now,
Well, no, but what you would want to do is have the coworkers write it, and then you have the marketing team review it, and then turn it, because it's not going to, no matter who the coworker is, it's probably not going to be written in the right way. Denise, what were you going to say?
I would say, Marilyn, that brings to mind, I worked for a large telecommunications company, and they actually created a video because we had turnover in our customer care call centers. And we created a video, a life in the day of a call center rep, to give people a realistic expectation of here's what a life in a day is. It was fabulous from a marketing and sales perspective, and the right talent, right, to set appropriate expectations. I think sometimes we oversell what you have to offer as an employer in that interview process, right? We're not realistic. And everybody's on their best behavior. It's like dating. Everybody dresses up nice, says the right things, the whole 9 yards, but you really don't know until you spend some time with somebody.
The real employee shows up in 6 months.
They do. Within that 6 months, Here's the other thing I think companies miss. It's line of sight. Why am I here? How is my contribution in this role helping you achieve your business goals? If managers could connect those dots for employees, so that employees understand why they're there and why their effort and their work matters, it would make a huge difference. But we don't talk about things like that. And there was one study that said only 7% of people really understand on the job what their business's goals are and how they contribute to them. Solve that line of sight problem.
Oh, that's fun.
Right. People want meaning in what they're doing.
Do. Yes.
Right? That's why I have my own company is I want meaning. I want to, so making sure that we understand, like, this is the goal we're after is awesome.
Right.
That's a
feeling like
total
I'm-
strategic communications problem. That's solvable. That's
very
totally solvable.
Very
Yeah.
solvable.
Marilyn's catching up finally about why I invited her. No, sorry. All right. If you can't tell people, we joke around a lot here, and sometimes I get myself in hot water doing that. All right. That said, hopefully not in this case. So that said, what are people looking for? Like, I think the world has changed so much, and I know, Marilyn, not you quite as much. I think Denise and Chuck, you guys are talking to people all the time. What are the requests that people have? And if you have insight, Marilyn, I don't want to shut you up. I just think that this is something you guys are running into day in and day out.
So just like I said, what I do matters. I'm contributing to something that's going to make a difference. I have great leaders and a great company to go work for. I don't want to go somewhere where it's toxic and they don't care about me and I'm just a widget. I want to have somebody who shows up with empathy and compassion and considers me as a human being. I want to be recognized and I want them to listen to me. Two-way communication. Just listen to me. It's not hard, but it's hard, right? It seems very simple, but in practice, making that happen and building that into your cultural DNA of an organization, so every person, every leader shows up that way, is not easy, but that's what people want. And it's not awful to have to deliver that, but you need to deliver. Stand up and be a good leader.
All right. Very cool. All right, Chuck, what's your answer?
I would say, really being part of a team and, a highly functioning collaborative, we're all rowing in the same direction. We care about each other. And I know Denise said, no, it's not a family, but on some levels, I would say that it is a work family. It's not your family, but it is a work family. You spend a lot of time at work, and that should be a source of strength and joy for you as an employee, your coworkers, and the team that you're on. So that's really critical. A couple of other things, I think growth. What's the growth path that is available to me in this role? And I think from an employer perspective, when we have this big long laundry list of skills and experiences that we want, and my purple squirrel is someone who has all of this. Well, have you asked the question, what's in it for them? Like, why are they going to take this job? Where are they going to grow? If they've already done all of that and have all the skills that you need, why would they take this job? So I think what you're really after is, what's that core of needs that I have, and someone who can get those done, and someone who has aptitude and drive and ability to learn and grow. any smart person is going to pick those things up and just skyrocket there. So thinking about what's in it for them is really important. And I think the last piece, and COVID's taught us this for sure 1,000 times over, is flexibility. Really understanding and being flexible about what do I need to get as a company, and how can my employees deliver that to me. Doesn't have to be in the way that I did it in the past, or I think it should be done. Get creative and be flexible, and really be results driven, not process driven.
Yeah.
So we have our first debate that Denise says no family, you can't be a family, and Chuck says absolutely we're a family, and it's okay.
Wrong. It just rubs me wrong when people say family. I'm like, yeah, I love my coworkers, and I, got amazing friends from coworkers over the years. But when you say family, I'm like,
Well, I have to tell you that if you said I could work with the family I grew up with, I might not say yes.
Families come in both ways, right?
I would argue that the dysfunction we all grow up with comes into the workplace because that's our norm, right? So
let's all pretend I never said that.
One of the things,
or that I've been in therapy for years. One of those two.
I think one of the things for me, I just love the people that I get the opportunity to work with. And that was a real loss in COVID, like just hanging out with those people and those shooting the breeze conversations that just happened by being physically present. That was tough. So, that was a loss for me, just not being physically present with people.
All right.
We
So
lost
Dennis
management by walking around.
Yeah.
Say that again, Marilyn. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear
We
you.
lost management by walking around.
Yeah,
we did.
for
You
sure.
have to be more intentional now.
That's such a good point. I feel like I have a to-do list out of this. I'm going to watch this video with the to-do list. All right. So Dennis says, yes, I'm sorry, Denise, he's voting against you. He says, work, family, peace matters. We often spend as much time with our coworkers as we do our family. I will say, I do think you don't fire family, and you will have to fire at some point. The boss are going to have to fire people. So yes, no one wants that, but the reality is it's a professional relationship, and you do also want to create a culture that is close and family-like, but it's not family. I'm with you a little bit, Denise. But so I'll balance it. Dennis and Chuck against Denise and I suppose. Marilyn, you can be the tiebreaker. What do you say, family or no?
I've worked in companies where it's both, where it really is close and people like each other. And I've worked in companies where, these are not people you would choose to hang out with, but and then when they give you the family thing in that environment, when they say the family thing, you just resent it, so. Yeah.
I think family can be used as a way to try to control people or try to create a culture that isn't really real and authentic.
Yeah,
and
right.
that's what I bristle about. That's not okay.
All right. Dennis says it's not personal, Denise.
Okay.
All right. So fair enough. Dennis, we'll have to introduce you to. All right. I think it's about warmth and safety is really what we're talking about with family. Family is that we feel safe. If you have a normal family, you feel safe there. And so that is what people are looking for with the family piece, is this warmth and safety piece. And, and as an employer, you definitely want to create a trusting and warm environment at the same time, not having toxicity.
Yeah, I agree with that. Building trust and safety so you can say what needs to be said, and so that you can have open perspectives and have disagreements and get to good business decisions. But using family as a way to control or to, motivate behavior that isn't authentic, I don't like that.
Yeah, we're family, so you have to work on the weekend.
Yeah, right?
That's not so fun.
Not so good.
All right, very good. Thank you to everybody that participated. I'm going to quickly do a quick next week, same time. We have a panel coming in, if all these people are leaving, or at least some people may be leaving, you're going to have a way to train them. And if they're not, then their role is shifting quickly enough at this point that you're going to need to train them anyways. We've got some panelists that are experts in training coming in to talk at our panel next week. With that is my last question of the day. Does anybody have a closing comment before we head out? See, I'm not supposed to close that way. We're supposed to have something really profound. I should warn you guys that way.
Pithy.
That's right. No, I mean, I really learned my closing comments is I feel like I have a list of like 5 things that I need to do with my team based off these conversations. And so thank you. I love doing these conversations because I learn a lot. But I've definitely learned a lot today, and I don't think I'm a slacker when it comes to understanding people. I actually have a pretty strong background in that area. But no, this is really, really, really helpful. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Dennis writes, agree very much that leadership's actions must back up whatever culture they are wanting to create. That is so true.
Yes.
And the other thing we don't talk about when it comes to culture is it changes. Every 30, 60, 90 days, you're building culture. And it's if you are consistent in how you interact on one-on-one and in group settings and what you reward and what you tolerate, you will blow it up.
Wow. Now, see, I learned something again. All right, Chuck, any last, I said last words, and Denise, she thought about it. I'm picking on you, pal. So poor Chuck, I just laid in on him. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.